Hey y'all, my name is Paul, and let's have a conversation. Today's topic is something that has captured my interest and imagination for decades. Crop circles. Now, I'm not going to come out and say, they are real, they are completely real, they're not man-made. I personally think, maybe 3/4 of them are man-made. But in typical Paul fashion, I decided to prepare for this by watching YouTube videos, documentaries on crop circles. The more information I have, the more of an understanding of the overall picture I have. And I took exception to one documentary in particular. It's called The Truth Behind Crop Circles, Best Documentary. That's actually it in the title. And I have a cat nibbling on my shins. And anyway, when I watched it, the first time I watched it, I was like, there's something about this that doesn't jive with me. There were a couple of points that I instantly picked up on, like, no, and I'll cover that in a second. But a lot of it was, it's like they tried to portray it in a positive light at first, and then debunk. And anyway, in the first 5 minutes, the narrator said, while I was watching it the second time, I did something I don't usually do. Notes. Okay, so in the first 5 minutes, they said that they are going to shine the light of science on crop circles. Keep that phrase in your mind. Okay. And there was a psychologist of the paranormal that was interviewed, and he's quoted as saying, "A lot of crop circle researchers do ignore the most obvious explanation for what's going on and prefer to jump to the more far-fetched conclusions, and I'm afraid that's just not good science." Now that stuck out to me, because good science. Keep that in mind. Store that little nugget away. Put it on a shelf right there in front, because you're going to be grabbing that later. Alright. Something else I noticed that didn't jive with me is they kept repeating the phrase, crop circles are not man-made. Like they're trying to prove that no crop circles are not man-made. And that's not the contention. The contention is some of them are real, and that's not what they're out to prove. They're under the assumptions that all crop circles are real, and I don't think there's anybody on the planet that believes that. Now they did hire, they went to a geometrist. I didn't bother writing his name down because why would I? He's just a guy that created a design. He created a couple of designs based on crop circles that he saw, and picked one for a group called the Circle Makers to make. Overnight, they had approximately 4 hours. It was one of the shortest nights of the year, and they wanted to get it done before the sun came up. And they had the farmer's permission to use their field. The film crew used infrared light, I believe, so that no additional light source was going to help the circle makers do their thing. And it turns out they did a pretty darn good job. And according to the guy that's in the head of the circle makers, he's been doing it for 17 years. Just 17 years. That's since 2000. Okay? Now, they had a guy, I have it written down here somewhere. Oh yeah, Mark Hodson, environmental geochemist. When it was all said and done, and he tested the crop circle from the one that was man-made and three samples from the one that was man-made, and then another three samples from a crop circle of unknown origins. Now keep in mind that the guy that is the head of the circle maker says that he never claims work as his own. Never claims work as his own. So that would lead me to believe that if he was not filmed making the design that the geometrist came up with, he would never claim it was his. So is it possible that the other crop circle of unknown origin was in fact made by the same guy? Can't rule that out. But just because it's of unknown origin, people don't usually want to admit to making crop circles because it's trespassing and it's criminal vandalism. How many people are going to admit to committing a crime to get in trouble for, 5 minutes of fame? I mean, there's no money involved, right? So, anyway, store that nugget away. He took 3 samples from the one that was known to be man-made, and 3 samples from the other one, the Phoenix, I believe it's called. And they tested for elevated nitrate levels. Why nitrates? I don't know. That's freaking fertilizer. What would that have to do with a freaking crop circle? And something else, radiation levels. Now that I can kind of understand, but to me, they're way off base on this. But I digress. I'm saving that for a couple of seconds from now because he took 3 samples from 2 crop circles, one being man-made, the control. And then he goes on to say, the most common sense explanation is that all crop circles are made by people, because he tested 2 samples, were the samples from 2 circles. He knows one is man-made and the other one is identical. And therefore he's reaching the conclusion that all are man-made. Remember the earlier quote? Just not good science? I cannot think of a single self-respecting scientist that is going to come to a conclusion based on a sample size of 1. Well, 1 plus the control. I don't count the control, because that's not truly a sample. You're just setting a benchmark on which to measure any other discrepancies against. 1. And he's claiming they're all man-made because he took 3 samples from 2 circles, one of them being man-made, for sure. Way to shine the light of science on this topic, guys. To me, it seems a little bit too much like a solid attempt at disinformation. Because, according to what I've seen and heard, the ones that should be studied have an effect on electrical devices. Helicopter pilots and plane pilots notice that their compass goes all wonky when they fly over a real crop circle due to magnetism, not due to nitrates, not due to minute traces of radiation, magnetism. Why weren't they testing the soil for iron? Plus, to me, if I was an enthusiast that lived in southern England, that would be the first thing I did. I would whip out the cheesiest, crappiest cell phone I had, power it on 100 meters away from it, and walk to it. As I get closer, if it starts acting all crazy, or it stops working completely, then I take soil samples. I would take soil samples from different parts of the circle. I would take soil samples from different parts of the same plot of land that aren't involved in the circle, because a farmer's going to work his land the same way. And then I would ask other farmers if I could take soil samples from them to make sure it's not a geographic phenomenon. To me, that is good science. A broad sample study in which to draw conclusions. Is it something that the farmer is doing, or is it something isolated to the topical geography of that region? I'm not even a scientist. And that to me would ring more true than a sample size of 2, 1 being a control. And you wouldn't need a control from a crop circle. You would just need the control from an area where the crop is not affected by a circle. Right? So that really, really bothers me. Let's see, what else do I have? Okay, there was another thing. There was nodes on the wheat. I googled it. Wheat was the primary crop in southern England at this time. And there's these little nodes that were elongated, bent. And it was hypothesized that it was superheated by water, caused it to bend but not break. And one of the biologists that they got said that it was phototropic. It was because the plant is going to naturally try to bend towards the light, so photosynthesis is more effective and the organism can thrive. That makes sense. What I don't get is how come when I saw this and I saw her pick up, a stalk of wheat, and it was bent. It looked like it was laying flat, not bent upward. Okay, it was laying flat, and then she pulled it out of the ground. If it was bending towards the light, wouldn't it go up? Very interesting. Now I know why they put in their title, literally in their title, -best documentary. Because if they didn't put that in there, nobody would even consider it to be a credible documentary. At least not anybody capable of critical thought and an open mind. Now, I'm not saying I'm all that. Personally, I have no proof the crop circles, even some of them, are genuine. Like the Arecibo reply, the one with the warning, the pictograph, the alien face, and then the little record in binary on the side. I really wish somebody took soil samples of those, did the electronic device test to see if there was any fluctuations. I would really love for those to be real, but I can't consider them to be real because I have zero information on that. I might come across it in my further studies, because believe me, this is not going to be the last time I talk about crop circles. But anyway, I think they also hit too hard on the psychic connection to crop circles, which personally I believe crop circles have zero things to do with psychic anything. People talk about going into a crop circle and feeling moved, and I'm thinking, in my youth, and I was a little more sensitive and open, I went into an art gallery and I had paintings that made me feel. I would feel energized. I would feel calm. I would feel emotionally moved. How is that any different? If you go in with a preconceived notion of what to expect, you're going to be on the lookout for any variance in yourself and probably cause it. It's the power of suggestion. You can't ignore the psychology behind it. And honestly, I think they threw in the whole psychic connection just to discredit the whole phenomenon more and get people to stop talking about it. Anyway, I have to cut this short. I gotta go pick up a kid from school. Yay! But believe me, I am not done talking about this subject. This is just the first installment. Anyway, my name's Paul, and as always, keep your eyes on the skies, but your feet on the ground.